Thought it was gonna last. Trust me, that is
Thinking our kids are
nothing.
somewhat similar ages.
Yes.
Like,
It's like you gotta work for
you
it.
gotta work. You can't just.
Hello, hello. Nah, still not working.
Our 26-year-old, I mean, he went to law school and
Start again. Oh,
it's the 23.
hello, hello. Are we good? Oh.
All right, so some board chairman remarks. One thing is, I'm a radio guy, so I usually don't have problems with microphones, but I have had problems with these microphones because I will look at you and turn my head, and then it drops off. So try to speak directly into the microphone, and it's aberrant, and it's not something that that you would expect to be good at, but evidently we're doing most excellent in this meeting. Had an event. Had a patient of mine who is at Sherman College, and she notified me that she was getting penned. I went to life in Atlanta 1,000 years ago, and we did not, unless they didn't include me, we did not have a penning ceremony when people cross over from academics, strict academics and sciences and stuff, into having the authority and training to cross over into the clinics. And I said, well, gosh, I've never been to one. And what day is it in? And once I mark it on the calendar, it can happen. And then the grandmother came in as a patient and said, "Are you going to that thing?" And I said, "Well, I have it marked out on the calendar. I can go." So I went. Amazingly positive experience. And one young man, his family from Puerto Rico, like 7 of them came for that one event. It was really good and really positive, and it was good to, when I am in these situations, sometimes I feel like I'm a youth and health vampire of all the new people and the folks that have the requisite amount of energy and and me having an idea about what their lives are going to be like or could be like. Just the excitement is really, really positive. And just not taking a vote or anything, but would events like that, we have one chiropractic college in South Carolina. It is the Chiropractic College of South Carolina. Do y'all feel it would be reasonable for us to send somebody, or for when these calendar events happen? I think that this one is 4 times a year. Do you feel that that would be a reasonable thing for us to go? Or one person to go, or like, hey, if you want to go, go?
I think that'd be a great idea for our board to either send one or several people to these, especially since college is in our home state. I think it'd be a great idea if, that we could send 1 or 2 up, or the whole board, or who would like to
Well, I'm normally there. I'm sorry, I was traveling and missed you this last one. But I'll also say the college hosts 2 graduations a year, one in June and one in December. And certainly we would love to have the opportunity to host anyone from the board at either the 4 quarterly pinning ceremonies or the 2 graduations.
Wow, and it really was a crazy positive experience, and I don't think there was not a new building since the last time I've been there. But for a while, every time I went there, hey, there's another building. Oh, this has changed. This is much improved. This is so that was a great thing. And then to, like, maybe I was older or something, so my family came to my graduation. Or it might have been that we didn't have any of these little steps, these intermediate steps before graduation, so there was no opportunity. And if that's the case, I really appreciate Sherman College for doing that. Anybody else have any ideas about that part?
Great idea to attend. We had a jacket ceremony, I think, but I don't remember any family being there. Not mine, but this is at Palmer.
Yeah, I remember the red line, when they drew the red line across my Clinton jacket. So you're done. I remember that, but that was, hey, you've met all your requirements. Let's go ahead and stand up here. It wasn't a thing. So I will reach out and look into to that and see what opportunities are there to be there, because I think it's good, and it's good for those folks to know, hey, the people that are protecting the public, we care about you too. Absolutely, I think. And is Dr. Guy here?
Yes, Mr. He's going to be with us by video conference.
Okay, and do we need to take a break to get that set up?
No, sir.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get that set up.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Not quite sure how to share the screen on this one. Can you talk me through it, Jonathan? I don't see oh, there's a share button. Okay. Share. Here we go. All right. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. Am I good?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I want to thank you guys all for giving me a few minutes to speak with you today. Some of you may know me. I've spoken with some of you, and I've been teaching continuing education courses since 1992. In 2008, I was one of the early pioneers who helped introduce online continuing education to the chiropractic profession. And at the time, I owned a company called DC Hours. Some of you may be familiar with that company. I sold that company back in 2022, and I no longer have any ownership or financial interest in it. And I want to make that clear because I'm not here to promote my former company. I'm not here to attack competitors or gain a financial advantage. I'm here because I understand this industry from the inside out. And I know how these courses are created. I know how they're delivered, and I know how providers compete for customers. And I believe the system has developed a very serious problem. When we first entered into the online CE business, there really wasn't a lot of competition. And as the owner of DC Hours, my job was to run a successful company and to make money for my company. But back then, it was really easy to comply with state requirements that involved delivery compliance. And when I say delivery compliance, I want to make sure you understand that I'm not talking about whether the content was good, bad, appropriate, or non-appropriate. I'm talking about how the course was actually delivered and whether the chiropractor was actually required to complete the education before receiving their credit. Now, the problem is that chiropractors may now be receiving continuing education credit without meaningfully completing the education. And when that happens, the purpose of state board mandatory continuing education isn't really being fulfilled. And this is where the issue becomes larger than any individual provider. Because once a state requires continuing education as part of its public protection mandate, the integrity of that education becomes a regulatory issue. Now, I'm not saying that the board knowingly allowed this to happen. I don't believe that at all. But if the system allows credit to be issued without meaningful participation, then state boards may ultimately be asked why the problem was not identified or addressed. And that's the concern that I really want to discuss with you today. We know the primary responsibility of every licensing board is to protect the public. And one of the ways the board fulfills that responsibility is by requiring chiropractors to complete continuing education. Now, the assumption is that the chiropractor is continuing to learn, staying current, and maintaining professional competency. But that entire system really depends on one basic thing being true, and that is that the education actually has to be taking place. A certificate that a chiropractor receives that they completed the course, it should mean that the chiropractor actually completed the course. It should mean that someone logged in, clicked through in a few screens, and it shouldn't mean that they should log in, click through in a few screens, and pay a fee. Now, to demonstrate this, I conducted an initial review of 30 online chiropractic continuing education courses, and I've written a white paper about that. This white paper didn't evaluate whether the course content was good or bad. I was looking at how the course was being delivered. Did the system require the learner to spend the required amount of time inside the course? Did it verify participation? Did it protect the integrity of the final examination? Did it make sure that the person that was receiving the certificate was actually the person that was completing the course? And I'm sad to report that every single course I reviewed had significant weaknesses in one or more of those areas. And one of the most striking examples was a course that awarded 2 hours of continuing education credit, but I was able to complete the credit in 5 minutes. I basically signed up for the course, registered for the course, took the test, and got my certificate. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that, in my opinion, is not continuing education. That is what I call certificate distribution. And the problem is that approving a course is not the same as verifying how that course is actually delivered. A course can look perfectly acceptable when the application is submitted to either the South Carolina State Board or CE Broker or PACE. The outline may be very strong, the instructor may be qualified, and the content may be appropriate. But none of that tells us what happens when the chiropractor actually logs into the course. Does the course require 2 hours of participation, or can it be finished in 5 minutes? Can the final exam be opened immediately? Are the correct answers revealed after a failed attempt? Can someone else complete the course for the licensee? These are just a few of the things that need to be examined when evaluating a course for delivery compliance. Now, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that the board or PACE doesn't have the staff or the resources to continually log into every approved course and test these systems on an ongoing basis. This is not a criticism of the board. It's just a gap in the current regulatory structure. And this matters because the board may believe that its continuing education requirement is being fulfilled. In most cases, it really may not be. A chiropractor can technically satisfy the requirement on paper without receiving the education that the board actually intended. And in my opinion, this creates a public protection issue, but it can also create a credibility issue for the profession and for the regulatory system overseeing that profession. I've been in contact with the Journal of Chiropractic Education, and I was encouraged to expand this work on my white paper into a larger, more formal research project and submit it for publication. Now, that research will include a broader review of providers and courses, as well as the regulatory environment surrounding online continuing ed. So this issue is actually moving beyond an informal white paper. And at some point, these weaknesses are likely to become public knowledge. But my goal isn't to embarrass anyone. My goal is to give the board an opportunity to address the problem before it is forced to respond to it. The answer is not to ask board staff to personally audit every online course. That's pretty unrealistic. Properly evaluating an online course requires someone to look at the technology that understands the technology, the timing controls, the participation requirements, the identity verification, the examinations, and the certificate issuance. Fortunately, we don't have to invent this idea from scratch. The real estate profession has already dealt with many of the same concerns involving distance education. There is a company called Arello, and it provides independent certification of distance education courses and their delivery systems. The concept is very straightforward. Before a course is submitted to a licensing authority, such as the Chiropractic State Board, for approval, the CE provider must first have the delivery system reviewed by an independent third party that has been approved by the board. That party verifies that the course meets the established standards for timing, participation, identity, testing, and completion. The third party doesn't determine whether the chiropractic content is clinically appropriate. That remains the responsibility of the board or PACE, depending on the state. The verifier simply confirms that the education is being delivered in the manner that it's being represented. And this is how the process would work in chiropractic. First, the provider would submit the asynchronous on-demand online course, and by the way, this only applies to on-demand courses, to a board-approved independent verifier. The verifier would evaluate whether the course meets established delivery standards, and once the course is certified, the provider could then submit it to the South Carolina board or to PACE or through the normal content and approval review. After approval, the verifier could periodically check the course to make sure that the safeguards remain in place. And what that does is it creates a clear division of responsibility. The independent verifier evaluates the delivery system. The board evaluates whether the course is appropriate for continuing education. The financial burden for getting the course approved by an independent third party should be placed squarely on the CE provider, not the board or on PACE. South Carolina, in my opinion, has an opportunity to lead the profession on this issue. Rather than waiting for a public controversy, a lawsuit, or an embarrassing report, the board can take a proactive approach. South Carolina could become the first chiropractic board to require independent delivery compliance verification, much like the real estate boards does with Arello. That would strengthen the public protection, it would preserve the credibility of continuing education, and it would reduce the burden on the board staff. It could also create a practical model that other states and PACE could follow. South Carolina would not simply be reacting to a problem, it would be helping solve it for the profession. Now, I'm not asking the board to adopt a completed system today. That would be ridiculous. I'm asking the board to acknowledge that there's a documented gap in how asynchronous online continuing education is currently monitored. I would also ask the board to explore independent third-party verification and consider forming a small working group or committee or pilot program to determine how this could be implemented in South Carolina. I am available to assist with the research. I have over 30 years of experience in this field. I can help with the development of standards and the implementation process in any way the board believes would be helpful. The problem is real, but the solution is very manageable, and South Carolina has an opportunity to address it now and lead the profession in the right direction. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Right, so any questions for Dr. Annunziata? And I think Dr. Garcia?
Yes, I was kind of reading over this and things that you had. So you have a company or a board that's going to do this. How many people are involved in this that are working with you on this?
Currently, I am in touch with Arello, which is an independent third-party verifier. Currently, they work with real estate, but they can modify for chiropractic. I also work for a company called the Council on Distance Education, full transparency. That company plans on submitting an application to whatever board is open to become one of the third-party independent verifiers. I would suspect, just like with chiropractic continuing education back in 2008, when there were really no CE providers online, or very few of us, I would suspect that there would be more companies that would be interested in becoming independent third-party verifiers that could get approved by the board to carry out this function. Right now, the Council on Distance Education has 4 employees, but that will increase considerably once we start having to verify these courses that will be coming in. And there will be thousands of hours of courses coming in, and we understand that. So we are geared to hire more people as needed.
Okay, so my question for me on that is, the way I look at this is with everyone that's going to be involved in this, we need to credential them. We need to have their CVs. We need to do a background check on all these people to see where they are, if they have any other ties with anyone else. I'm kind of reluctant to give up some of our autonomy on doing some of these things, but I do think we have to have a very good background of all this. I mean, when you mention these things that are wrong, I mean, all the courses I've taken, heck, we have to answer questions every so often. We have to do all sorts of things. And this is some of the things I implemented back when I was continuing ed chairman, that they were supposed to do that. And I know we're trying to monitor them, but, I've never had, and some of the courses I take is from Sunnybrook Jacobs School of Medicine. So, they do exactly everything that you've talked about. Everything is we have to do. We have a test. We have all these things at the end. No answers are given to us. Are we allowed to retake it? Yes. I think the question is, anytime you take CE, you want to do mastery. I mean, you have to know what's going on with the course you're taking, whether it's TBIs or doing digitizing X-ray. So I just think my question is, I'd like to have a background of everybody who's involved in this, because I think we need to know. Just like we need to know when people do reviews, we need to have their CV and check their CV and see, okay, I mean, because you did this, doesn't mean you really have the credentials to do it. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just saying that I think we need to really investigate this a little further, and we need to have our own committee, Mr. Chairman, to kind of review what kind of answers and questions do we have, and, what are we, giving up, per se. And, we still want to be in control. And, because I think that's our job in South Carolina, is to be in control. I'm not concerned about Georgia or Florida or anywhere else. I'm concerned about the great state of South Carolina. And that's, I just think we need to have that. So Mr. Chairman, we just have to think about making a committee to do this, and that somebody would like to do is knowledgeable and say, okay, this is all the information we got. And then we need to go over it with our own board and say, is this something we want to do or not? So, thanks.
Dr. Garcia, may I address that? I thank you for that, and I agree 100% with you, Dr. Garcia. I feel that when the board approves an independent third-party verifier, that board should look at all the people that are doing the work, verifying the courses, making sure that there are no conflicts of interest and things like that. I'd also like to address another thing. I understand that you may have had some good experiences with online continuing education, and I think there are some good experiences out there. But the fact remains that in my evaluation of 30 courses that have been approved by the South Carolina State Board of Education, or State Board of Chiropractic, I should say, none of them met all the requirements. In other words, I was able to do things like have my front office staff take the course for me and answer the questions and get the credit. I never even looked at the course. And once again, I'm just doing this as this is my test of these courses. I was able to take a course, and in the end, the test came up and I answered the question. I got it wrong. It said, no, you got that one wrong. Here, this is the right answer. Do it again. And I was able to get 100% on the test without ever having looked at the course. There are things that occur in these courses. And I feel the reason that they do this is they want to make it as convenient as possible for chiropractors to get their, not their continuing ed, but to get their certificate. And the reason for that is because there's so much competition right now amongst the CE providers in the chiropractic profession. So they're doing everything they can to increase their sales. And convenience is one of the things that they're doing. And that convenience comes at the sacrifice of public protection, because now the courses are not being fulfilled the way they were intended when the board said, hey, you need 18 hours of continuing ed. Sure, I'll go get 18 hours and, it'll take me, I'll let my front office staff do it. And the way my white paper, and I've submitted my white paper to the South Carolina board if you want to read it, it details everything, 30 courses among 15 providers. Now, the Journal of Chiropractic Education wants me to expand that to 60 courses, and they want me to evaluate it in more detail. And that's what I'm working on right now. I have not submitted that yet to the Journal of Chiropractic Education, but I can tell you my preliminary findings, and they are, concerning, and that's why I'm doing this.
I appreciate your input and doing this. I do have one question. It's just like all of us do here every time we review a case. When you said you took the course and it took you 2 hours, what kind of documentation do you have that you can show us exactly that's what happened? I don't like to do anything on hearsay. I like to have documentation where you recorded it by video or by audio. I just like to have that. It's just a good thing for us to have so we can fall back on it if we need so.
Well, if you do decide to form a committee, I'd be glad to appear before the committee and I'd present all of that to you. I have videos, I have screenshots, I have people that have taken the course for me that would be glad to talk to you about it. It's very, very apparent what's going on in the chiropractic continuing education field, and I'm just concerned about it. A lot of other professions don't have this problem, but we do, and so I feel like we need to address it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions to Dr. Annunziata?
I had one quick question about the third-party verification. The financial burden of that would fall on the CE provider. Is that what I understood?
Yeah, so the way that I propose, and it doesn't have to be this way, but every time a CE provider wants to get a course approved, they would first submit it to the independent third-party verifier that has already been approved by the board. And that independent third-party verifier would go through all the technology stuff that I've been talking about, and then either say, no, you need to fix this, or yes, here's the stamp of approval, and then that would get passed along to the South Carolina State Board, and your job wouldn't change at all. You would have all the autonomy to either approve or not approve the course based on content, but you'll have that satisfaction or whatever to know that the delivery is being met. Now that burden, we've talked about the financial burden, and we feel that for every course that is submitted, they should be approved for a 2-year period, and it should cost the provider $100 for a course. After 2 years, they have to resubmit the course. And during that 2-year period, the third-party verifier is responsible for going back and looking at that course every 6 months to make sure that nothing has changed, that they didn't just submit the course and then change things around later on. So it's continued compliance over a 2-year period. And we feel that $100 per course is very reasonable, especially when you consider how much money these CE providers are making. And I know that's not our business. I mean, it is their business to make money. That's why they're in business. But they can afford $100 a course. It's not that big a financial burden.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, any additional questions to Dr. Annunziata?
I have a question. So you said that this is a problem that is plaguing the chiropractic profession. And what have you seen other professions are doing that prevent them from having the same issue? Because I know we're not the only profession that uses online for our continuing education. That's the first question. And then the second question I had is, of those other professions, what are they using to make sure that their online courses are up to par and standard? Because the third-party model is Arello, which is a real estate-based third-party model. So did you see anything out there maybe for the nursing profession or medical profession or any other professions that they were using to verify their courses as well?
That is a great question, and I will tell you, I searched for it, and the only one that I found was Arello. So the real estate board is basically way ahead of the game on everybody on this, which is really, surprising, considering they have nothing to do with healthcare. But nonetheless, when I looked at other courses, now, when I did this white paper on continuing ed for Chiro, I said, you know what, let me do it for PT, let me do it for nursing, let me do it for law. And I found the same issues everywhere. This isn't just a chiropractic issue. This is an issue with all online continuing education. And we kind of should have foreseen this, right? Online continuing education is relatively new when you think of things in the grand scheme of things. I mean, 2008, there were just 3 of us delivering online continuing education. And, of course, as it evolved, there were going to be problems. And this is one of the problems that I think has come up, but I think it's a solvable problem. And I think the real estate board really did a good job in solving the problem. Do I think that that this needs to be brought to the attention of other boards? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not a PT. I'm not a nurse. I'm a chiropractor. So I'm concerned with chiropractic. And so to answer your question, Doc, I don't know if any other boards besides PT, nursing, and law are doing that, are doing what you're asking. I do know real estate is, but I will tell you this, the PT courses that I checked were way worse than the chiropractic courses. They were really bad. Almost in every instance, I could just sign up for a course and get my certificate. It wasn't good. But I think there's a solution, and I think this is a very reasonable solution that's not going to cost the CE providers a lot of money. It's not going to put a lot of burden on the board. Absolutely, it won't put any burden on the board, really, other than to approve independent third-party verifiers.
Dr. Garcia?
So I just get this straight in my mind. So as a board, we're responsible to approve a course. And then will you want us to send it to your company to verify that they're doing it with integrity to do the online course, right? Is that correct? So we're the ones who say.
So I'm not asking you to send it to my company. I'm asking you to send it to an independent third party, which right now, my company and Arello are the only ones out there. But I assume that there will be others to follow. And the order in which I am suggesting is that the course first gets sent to the third party independent verifier. The independent verifier looks at the course for delivery compliance, not content, just delivery compliance. Am I able to complete the course without having learned anything? That's what I'm looking for. And then once our company, gives its stamp of approval, that then gets sent to the board with the application, the normal application process that you have now. But now you have documentation that this course has been verified by an independent third party to ensure delivery compliance. Now, if the course submitted to the independent third party doesn't meet the compliance standards, that course will get sent back to the provider and say, here are the things you need to fix, resubmit. And then they would resubmit, and it wouldn't cost them another $100. They would just resubmit it. And then if those things were fixed, they would get the stamp of approval. That stamp of approval would get passed on to the board along with the application, and the board would then make its decision based on the content of the course, knowing that the delivery compliance has already been verified.
I think that, in my mind, that order is wrong. I think they need to be approved by the board first, and then we can send them to get their compliance on the online course itself. That's just my own thinking, and that's something we need to discuss. And just out of curiosity, if you go back when you started this in 2008, what kind of, did you have some of these same issues? And the reason I asked that, because I remember I'm one that approved some of your courses, and I asked specifically that we have a place to make sure that people are on there and that you could time them and do it and make sure it's them for the whole time was 6 hours or 12. So I'm asking, did you have any issues with that back in 2008, 2009, 2010?
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of issues because technology wasn't there yet.
And so did you, well,
it
let me
was hard.
interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, but so at that time, did you happen to approach our board saying, hey, these are some of the difficulties we're having, even though we asked that these things be put in order for us? And
I never
if it was,
approached your board, but I did approach PACE. And PACE, you could actually speak with Dr. Schumbacher, I think his name is. We together developed technologies that could be implemented by CE providers. But it took time because the technology wasn't entirely there to do all the things that the boards were asking.
all right.
We
Thank you.
did the best we
I don't want
could.
to interrupt, but thank you. I think we got our answer. Thank you. All right.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're welcome.
All right, any
You're welcome.
additional questions for Dr. Annunziata? Well, Dr. Guy, I want to thank you. Gosh, I think the reason I am PT endorsed is because of you and a whole bunch of other people I know because PT was not offered at Life when I was there. And I very much appreciate you and your brother Charlie. And thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. I suspect we will come up with at least a half-step solution in just a few minutes.
Okay, and just remember, I'm available if you need any consultation or you want me to come before and present my information. I'm there for you.
All right,
Thank
well,
you very much for letting me present.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
All right, so it looks like Dr. Guy has left the building. I think it might be reasonable to form a committee. Does anybody have ideas about that?
Mr. Chairman, I do think we need to form a committee. This is an important thing, not just this week, next month, next year, but for the next decades. And so we need to make sure, one question we need to ask when he said it could be, if we approve someone and they go through this and take a 12-hour course in 5 minutes, who's responsible for that? If something happens and something that they approved, and then it comes back to us, and we say, well, we're not the person who approved that course of how it was implemented, we need to know who's responsible for that. So when they start lowering up, per se, we need to know, where our defense, and I do think when we form this committee to do it, I hope that we could have one person, an LLR or something with us as we review this to see how their status is with it too. So just if we have our board and we'd be in charge of it, but I do think we can get a little input from one of their people.
I think that's super reasonable. And gosh, if you are a practicing chiropractor and you commit fraud, that's another reason to come visit us. So in my experience with the online stuff, I've not encountered anything you could zoom to the end and do a test and get 2 hours in 5 minutes or anything. I've not encountered anything. That might not be my nature and wasn't necessarily looking for the exploit. But it's fraud for one of our, definitely an unprofessional act for one of our people to participate in it. Oh, wait, is that Dr. Hoskins? All right.
Couple concerns that I have with this situation. Content and technology up is probably going to be the biggest stumbling block. Is the content adequate? I think that's up for your CE board. Technology adequate, that changes day to day. Second of all, I would like to caution the board on naming a for-profit agency as a business partner in legislation. So caution the board to that step in this situation. To Dr. Garcia pointed out, to give up the autonomy of our board to protect the citizens to a third party in another state in the mountains. They are qualified to practice or not. This is another step towards giving up the autonomy of actually even having a board here in South Carolina. So those are the three things I wanted to mention. Anecdote, I've been running conferences for chiropractors for 10 years now, and you always hear about the guy that goes to the conference and signs in and goes to the beach for the rest of the day and comes back. I've experienced one person that's done it maybe 3 times, but once he got his hand smacked by the gatekeeper, I know that there are people that have those tendencies, but like you said, we're professionals. Commit fraud, that's you shouldn't be in this profession. Forcing that kind of compliance might be heavy-handed, but that person, the other 3 things is actually separate in your considerations, and then whatever the third thing is, I said. Thank you.
Dr. Hoskins, Dr. Garcia?
I think this is a good reason we should form a committee. There's a lot of questions I think we all have. And, I thought, and it was interesting when I asked him about when he started doing his own back in 2008. And I knew, at that time we said, hey, we want to be able to do it where, if you don't have any involvement, it stops. And they could use the little webcam and they could just have the person there the whole time. And they always said that was for the severe people. And I said, well, that might be a lot of them. So I think that's a good way to form a committee. And there's a lot of questions I think we all have on that of how it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. For us in chiropractic, South Carolina, we've always led the way in all our rules, regs, and everything else. But I think we need to be, really cautious. Anytime somebody says they reviewed something, and they did it this way. I'd like to have documentation, just like we do. If you take an x-ray or whatever, we want documentation. So instead of saying, because this way, no one can come back and say, that's just hearsay. That's, this is what you heard, and we just need documentation, so.
And God forbid something would cross over into our legal profession people. They're going to cast the biggest net to the biggest fish, and there's no telling who will be ensnared in it. And I don't think with WIC, I don't think we have the power nor legitimacy to abrogate our responsibility to somebody else. So do you think, would we be in favor of creating a committee? Would somebody, Dr. Rack, would you make that motion? All right, very good. To form a committee to research and come up with an action plan on this issue? Correct. All right, and we got Dr. Hoskins.
Apologies, it just occurred to me that the board already has in effect a default CE checks with CE broker.
Right. And
So-
PACE approved
Well,
people,
even
but
with CE broker, the course has to be approved. So the checks may already be there with the implementation.
and then you would ask do we have an IT director of the South Carolina Board of Chiropractic Examiners to come up with a protocol with all these things? We don't. So, but that would be committee work, right?
Yes.
One of the suggestions that's been made would be have someone from LLR. It's been suggested that they have someone from LLR, and certainly LLR, very talented professional IT people that might be available. So that's something we certainly need to explore. But it's also been suggested because of the implications of this for other boards that that'll be a designee or someone from LLR because this particular issue may not be unique and certainly isn't unique to this particular board.
All right, so we have a motion to form a board. Do we need, not a board, a committee? Do we need a board?
I second that motion.
All right, very good. Any more discussion? And I'm going to just procedurally, are we okay going ahead and approve filling it, or do we need to fill it before we, and we've already got a second, so let's vote to form a board and
Form
a committee.
committee.
Gosh, committee. And then we'll have another motion for who should be on it. How about that? Since we already have a motion. So any more discussion? Can't read you yet, Dr. Rack. I thought you were about to jump in there. So all in favor of creating this committee to look into this issue signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, so we have formed the committee. I would like someone else to make a motion of who should be in the committee, but I'll ask a question first. Who would like to be on a committee, this committee?
I would like to be on the committee and do that. I also, and I don't want to point out people to do it, public member needs to be on this committee. Except.
Happy to serve if that's the desire of the rest of the board.
All right, it's a dance just with two people. Who else would like to be on this committee? Right, so Dr. Thigpen. Who else? Since we have so many absent members and we have an unfilled spot, I think it's reasonable to, next meeting to add other people. But are we cool with the 3 members, Garcia, Canup, and Thigpen, Crichton-Thigpen? Dr. Rack, would you like to be part of this also? First meeting, deep into the pool.
I'm in. I'll do it.
All right, and Dr. Rack. All right, so and this can expand, especially because there are people that weren't there. So any more discussion, any additions that you can think of?
And have- Are you able to make a recommendation, or would you like to take that under advisement and get back to us?
Yes, I will take it under advisement.
And it's reasonable to say, hey, this board has a committee and it deals with some technical stuff. We need a technical person to just visit with us and figure out where we are. I think that's reasonable and would be in the course of normal duties, that would not be an extra thing. So,
Well, the point here too is not only do you want a technical person, but you need someone who's familiar because of the boards that are under LLR. A significant impact on other boards. And so certainly I think there needs to be someone, in addition to the technical person, to be considered, contact LLR to see if we can get some, to work with this committee, because obviously as expressed, this could have substantial impact upon other boards.
and that's, I think, reasonable. And, there's, the technical side is going to be part of it, but everything else is also part of it. So let's have a vote. All in favor of staffing this new board with Dr. Garcia, Dr. Canup, Dr. Crichton-Thigpen, and Dr. Rack signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. All right, we have created that committee. Let's allow the committee to name themselves, unless it's like, Team Astro or something, or a name that'll work. Foreign educated chiropractors.
Yes, Mr. Chair. At the last board meeting, the board did discuss foreign educated chiropractors and the education requirements. And at that meeting, I think we decided that the postgraduate program must be accredited by the European Council of Chiropractic Education or International Education for Chiropractic Evaluation. But we did not discuss the pre-professional requirements for foreign educated chiropractors. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Wick.
Well, I guess, I have passed out some material. There's no one international agency that seems to be positioned to provide regulations that we could adopt. It appears that this international entity has members that have their own, accreditation standards. And so I guess I'm concerned about, in terms of international acceptance, that we probably need someone to basically review and indicate that whatever standards are being looked at are in fact equivalent. I guess the concern that I've got is that in this Council on Chiropractic Education International, you basically got several different members. The main one is the one that's the European member that does have some standards. And the European Council on Chiropractic Education has about 12 different institutions that have been together and form this ECCE, and they have their own standards that they have for accreditation. And so I'm thinking that probably we need someone who is in a position to talk about the equivalency issue.
Well, I'm not really worried about our people going there. I'm worried about their people coming here. And so if I have the standards, and if you meet these standards, then you can come from a foreign country to South Carolina.
Well, the problem you got is our Regulation 25-2A2 basically says, you know, that in order to be licensed here, you have to be a graduate of a chiropractic college accredited by the Council of Chiropractic Education, or CCE, or goes on, or meeting equivalent standards. And so I'm thinking if you're looking for equivalent standards and you're looking for someone who's graduated, you know, from one of these foreign chiropractic schools in order to basically consider them as meeting equivalent standards, then I think you've got to basically look especially at the European requirements in terms of the equivalency. So that's one of the main issues I think that we've got to deal with.
Who would be qualified to make those equivalencies? Would it be
No, I think it would have to probably be the board.
at each state?
No, what I'm saying is that unfortunately there's not an international but what you've got, certainly under what's out there right now, is that you probably have, you know, at least 3 accrediting agencies out there for foreign schools. You've got the European, you've got the Australia, Asia, and then you've got Canada. And so what I'm thinking here is if you've got someone who's applying to practice chiropractic medicine in South Carolina that's from one of these schools, I think that you've got to, in that particular school would have been accredited in South Carolina. And again, what you do have is that you've got standards, you know, for CCE, which is our U.S. accrediting agency.
Well, here's a question. If I have the standards for CCE and I go, hey, we would like your college, your students to be able to have a license in South Carolina, how do you meet with these standards? Oh, we're 100%. We're actually better than they are. Well, what does that mean? I mean, anybody can say anything. And in these places that are I mean, gosh, you know, what if I think there's a McTimony Chiropractic College in the nation state of Wales. How would this is what we say we do, and these European people recognize us, but do you, as a South Carolinian, do you have any competence in what foreign empires on distant shores have for people that are going to practice in your state?
I do think, Mr. Chairman, I do think one of the things the CCE that does also in the U.S. also has ties with some of these other institutions that as an equivalent to CCE. And of course, years ago, the New Zealand Chiropractic College asked if their students or if their graduates could get a license in South Carolina. And after I reviewed that, they met all the standards. Of course, the biggest thing that we always said, you got to take 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then pass the practical. And if you can do that, then you can get a license. Then my next question was, can our doctors go to New Zealand and get a license?
What was the answer?
And the answer was yes. And I said, well, I hope it is, because if we can't go there, I'm sorry, you guys can't come here either. If your standards, our standards we think are the best in the world. And I think that if our docs pass here but can't go there, then I'm sorry, our standards are better than that. So, they can pass all that, and we've allowed them to, I don't think we've had anybody from New Zealand come here from that chiropractic college. But it is also, my thinking was, it could be a daughter or son or grandchild, moved to New Zealand from here, went to chiropractic college, and I sure would hate to keep them from coming here if they met all those, standards and equivalent. But I do think, I sure hate for our docs not to be able to go to their countries, but they want to send, their docs here. So I don't know how to. I think their standards are probably already there. I think the big question is, how does that relate for our, if we have to, and believe it or not, I'm, number one, I ain't no good in English, and I'm not very good in Spanish either. So, if they're requiring that you have to have all this, have to be great understanding of Spanish or German or something, then we need to have that same standard. Of course, most people speak English anyway, but we need to have the same standard. So I think that's something that, we can look into. I think the qualifications there, I just like to get some of those little things out of the way that we can, reciprocate to if one of our docs wants to go to Ireland or anywhere else.
I would just mention, and it doesn't solve this problem, but while CCE is maybe the primary accreditation agency here in the U.S., there's also now ICE, which is the International Agency for Chiropractic Evaluation. It's actually based in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Right now, the only two member institutions are Sherman and New Zealand. So that's another source that we can look to potentially.
The bottom line is that there's no magic accrediting agency for foreign students that we have, and it would have to be done on a one-on-one basis. In the sense, there's no easy answer.
Here's something to think about. Some of our chiropractic colleges, I think every one of them has had problems and had been put on some sort of probation or some sort of, hey, we think your program is lacking, you need to make some changes. How would you evaluate that as a distance? Well, y'all have been a great participant and have created a lot of great doctors. But yeah, your accreditation, you're under a cloud. What's going on there? Do you have to send somebody there? I mean, how do you know?
Well, again, we're dealing with the foreign issue right now. There's no magic number or easy answer as far as these foreign accrediting agencies. And so we don't accredit foreign institutions.
Right, but we get to make the decision whether or not their graduates can practice in South Carolina.
And there's not going to be, unless you won't want to say that we are accepting the European regulations as equivalent to ours, in addition to the education that you're getting, that someone who graduates from one of these European accredited schools can automatically be accepted here as far as their education.
I do think the education is one thing, passing 1, 2, 3, and 4 and the test. I think that's going to be either allow them to practice or not. I do think, and this is probably a good question for our CCE people to say, well, you've worked with some international ones, if they having the same standards that we have or equivalent. And I think that might be a question that we may need to go first. And then they got to pass all our national boards. So I think that.
What about timing? Because I know it's a big thing for accelerated programs. What if they're ahead of us and you can get the chiropractic portion of your education in 18 months?
Well, I think the biggest thing with that, the one thing that they would have to follow is, now our state's much better than other states so far as hours and that, where other ones have to say, you have to in the seat so many hours, so distance learning is out the door. So, so we have to look at that aspect too. And if that doesn't qualify for what we have, then it just doesn't qualify. So, they may be able to do it, but if they're only going to do 18 months and ours is a 4-year program, so you just don't qualify. I mean, because of that, even though that, and I don't think that, well, I would think that CC would not, saying that idea with another country, saying that they're only doing 18 months or 24 months, does have to be equivalent to so many. But so some of the gaps that we have that we need to make sure, I'm not trying to keep anybody from getting a license, but I do think that if they can follow, our standards have changed over the years. When I went to school, not that I'm ancient, but when I went to school, have changed from what we have now. So, and that's one thing, because we're changing it under the guidelines of CCE, equivalent agency that we have here. So, I just think that, when we look at that, if they're college, and especially if they have less than what we require, years-wise or whatever, then I think that would say, you just don't fit our criteria.
Bottom line, though, is that right now, I don't know that we have any recognition of foreign educated students. They would have to meet, basically the CCE requirements, it seems, because of the way the regulation is drafted. Because it basically says you have to be a graduate of a student of a accredited institution by CCE or the equivalent. So that basically means that until you determine that some of these foreign schools equivalent, that we're limited to students that have graduated from an accredited CCE colleges.
I have a question about the equivalent. Is it the equivalent agency, or is it the equivalent education program?
I mean, that's what the board has to decide, because it talks about the reg that we have says, applicant transcript from a chiropractic college accredited by having recognized candidate status with the Council of Chiropractic Association, Council of Chiropractic Association, or meeting equivalent standards. And that's the thing, is that right now, as far as I'm aware, that actually, I'm not sure the board in the past had determined what's equivalent yet.
Are there other states that currently have members from another country practicing in their state that we could look at their regulations and maybe model something? Or I would imagine some state in the U.S. has a person from Germany practicing in their state or wherever. So we don't rewrite or reinvent the wheel.
Well, you're right now, your regulation is going to control. And I think it might, take a modification of the regulation.
And I think I'm understanding what you're saying. If we decide what's adequate, or what was the language on the
Equivalent.
the
Equivalent is the key word.
So if we recognize even all three of these that are here, then that would solve the problem.
I don't think so. All three of what you're talking about.
The ones that you listed in the European Council on Chiropractic Education, the Austrasia,
Austrasia, yeah.
and then the Canadian one.
Well, I don't think you're in a position to do that right now. I think it would take, if you're going to go ahead and use anyone who has been graduated from one of these institutions, I think that you got to basically evaluate whether or not their requirements or standards are equivalent to ours. And right now, I'm not aware that we have done that, for any of these three, or could do it for any of these three.
So step one would be creating somebody who finds, are they equivalent? Like just dissecting the,
I'm not, that would take, I think, probably too much time.
yeah.
Unless you have foreign students coming in. Of course, what you've got right now with the number of schools that the European member has approved, you got 12 colleges there, and then you've got 8 or so with Australia, Asia, and you think you've got one.
Is there, could we push this to the national FCLB and find out what states are doing for cases like this, just to see any similarities and change our regulations, or take steps once we understand what they're
Well,
doing?
I think all you've got right now is that would require additional research, and so I think, I think the question that the board has would dictate what kind of research you want done. But right now, I don't see an easy answer. They have to be done on an individual basis every time it comes up.
At this stage, yeah. I
But
agree
we
with
might
you.
be able to ask FCLB to do one of their push-pull things and find out what other states.
See what their language is, so if we do change our regulations, we could get the.
Well, again, the situation here is, I agree, it's going to probably take a reg change to have any particular direction, so it might be good to do a survey of other states to see how they treat other foreign students.
I think that has to be the move. I think we stay with what we have right now, which is we can't accept anybody that hasn't fit.
Mac, any suggestions?
Well, with some of the other professions, they have credentialing agencies out there that does evaluation of foreign educated education. And so, I don't know, I think like the WES is one of those services, and they look at foreign education and compare it to accredited programs here in the United States and make a decision on whether or not, this person's education is equivalent to someone who graduated from an accredited program here in the United States. And so that may be something that the board could possibly look at. I don't know how many of those programs that evaluate chiropractic education, but it could be some out there that does.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think too, we already have it in our law that we can approve it. I mean, because it says over the equivalent. I don't think we have to go to General Assembly to change that. The reason we made it like that, so we wanted latitude as from when we started this to now and in the future. So that's already in there for us. Number two, I think the CCEI, and I believe that they are recognized by the CCE. That's why they went CCE International. So if the CCE is on board with the CCI, I think we have to go with the CCI is saying, that these people meet the credentials and everything that we need for them to take the exam. Our only thing in South Carolina, you got to take all 4 parts, or whatever is in there. And so I think that gives us a way to say, hey, you can do it if you take all these parts and pass them. Because we've already had, we can do it in our state with our regs. And then the other part is that, and we can check on it, and it's, I hate to do a survey with FCLB, only because when you break it down, you look at the stats, and of course, you guys know my wife was a stats teacher, so she breaks it down real quick and says that's invalid. I mean, every time I say all those things that they do is invalid. If they went to court, they couldn't back it up, and I understand that because I asked them some questions at a meeting years ago, and they couldn't back it up. So, we have to watch who we ask, and maybe more directly to the NBCE, maybe. But I do think the first thing we need to do, and as chairman, Mr. Chairman, I think you should call CCE and say, hey, could you tell us if you're involved with CCEI and what that means? And I think that way we can get our answer pretty quick.
I mean, the answer here to some, that's part of the problem. If you look at what I passed out, it indicates that CCEUS is not currently a member of CCEI.
And they may not be a member, but it doesn't mean that they don't recognize them. That's the part that we have. this is what we have to understand with CCE, if they recognize as an accrediting agency. I would believe it would be part of the, I mean, but that's an easy question to ask. And then we can go from there.
Dr. Hoskins has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Hoskins.
Discussion comes to a crux that we've been dealing with for a while. First of all, 2 points of order. Per the minutes that were reported, or that you guys passed last board meeting, FCLB no longer exists, so I don't know why we're bringing them up in a meeting. Sorry. I thought I heard my voice in it. FCLB no longer exists. They got merged with the NBCE. That was reported the last.
The FCLB is a committee of NBCE, so they still do exist.
Okay, that wasn't made clear. I
sorry.
thought they got merged and no longer were an entity. The phrase chiropractic medicine was used. I don't think that's an allowed. Third thing is, I think the crux of this is either we, as a board, as a state, completely take autonomy for what's accepted or not, or if we accept the credentialing of a college, we accept that credentialing of a college. I think it's redundant. I think it's a good exercise at times to verify the credentialing. But if we're trusting the credentialing, why are we then going asking questions about how did you get to credentialing? Then let's just do away. If we don't trust it, don't trust it. Or we do trust it and do trust it. That's some things I'm seeing here. Also, we have to recognize not everybody's educational system is like the United States. You know, they're doing calculus in 8th grade in some countries. So we also have to recognize that they get into professional programs differently than we do here in the United States. Last thing is, I don't know anybody here on the board or in this room that could go back and take boards 1, 2, and 3 right now to get your license. I mean, that's histology, pathology, things like that. So that would be something to consider as well. But the big concern is, if you're going to accept somebody's accreditation, I think you accept it. If you don't, then don't accept anybody's accreditation.
And I think there's a real risk, though. You don't know if something's in a industrial garage thing, and they've got a neat letterhead and a cool website, and they can advertise whatever they want. They can have course schedules, and this is what you're going to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14 quarters worth of stuff, and they don't ever put a butt in a seat, and they don't ever actually graduate anybody. You know, at a distance, how do we know anything about anything?
That's where the accrediting agencies would come in, Mr. Chair, that's the third-party accrediting agency that you recognize as doing that research. Having been part of the team during accreditation for the CCE, it's a map document with lots of meta-competencies, and not only in a programmatic and didactic and clinical setting, but also in prerequisites and other things. I know it's a problem with IACE. Those things are there as well, and every accrediting agency would have the same thing. Yes, there's been diploma mills in the past, and they still exist today, but they're not accredited. And that's what I'm saying, except the accrediting agency or not.
Any more discussion? We need to do. I will have no problem calling CCE maybe tomorrow and ask answer us. So by next meeting we'll have something. All right. Well, I will take that one and. Endonasal craniofacial release committee. All right, so one of the, is an intro to this. Dr. Henry, at some point, we're going to go into executive session, and I'll share some Dr. Henry things. But Dr. Henry was doing the research on that, and he is incapacitated at this current state, but you can talk to him on the phone. And he should be at our next meeting. So we will, I would like to go ahead and push endonasal our next meeting, where we have some information. Are we amenable to that?
I make a motion that we delay it.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor of moving that agenda item to our next meeting in November, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. All right, we have done. IRC members, approve additional members.
To find that on my agenda.
Okay, well, I have a printed agenda, and it's issue, the last one on the first printed page.
I only have one page.
Well, it should be on the first page. Now, this is a horrible thing against the cult of the dead tree, but it's always easier to deal with paper. Right, Wick? It's always easier to deal with paper. Yeah, if that's the
Okay.
agenda page. It's
There's just no additional information provided. It's just an item on there.
Okay, yeah, I see.
And I can provide additional information if you like. We set some IRC members at the last meeting. Since Dr. Garcia is now on the board and he's left the IRC, we need to fill his space. The Office of Investigations is in charge of putting together the IRCs, and they've requested 2 additional IRC members to be added to the IRC. Mac, do you have the name currently?
Currently, we have Dr. Beth Elick and Dr. Anthony Cowles, and then
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can I mention one thing? When we had the IRC and I served on there, we had great relationship with our LLR and everybody there. At least I did. But, I mean, it was a great experience. Investigators always do a great job. Everything's always on time, all that. But I do, the one reason we went from 1 member in the IRC to 3 was that we had 3 so that for several reasons, they were all former board members, and I think they need to be former board members because they really understand the process, how the board thinks, and they're used to the regular. The other thing we had 3 was so that if there was an issue where one decided to do this, the other one decided that, we had a third one that could, change that vote. Also, we really at times only need 1. So if 2 members can't make it for whatever reason, then we have one that can make that decision. And with, with all the information that we get. So, but originally what it was meant to do was to have like member 1, 2, and 3. So 1 would be there for 1 year, and the second person would be 2 years, the third person would be 3 years. So when number 1 went off, we had a new member, so we would rotate. So that 1 member would be on there for 3 years and get the experience being on the IRC and also because they're on the board. So I would like to think that we could go back to that and set these terms for the docs right now that we have and have that third one, whoever comes on, to be the 3-year doc on there. And then, next year as we do it, the 1 goes off and then we have another doc come in and we can rotate them that way. It's just an easy way to do that.
Well, in your experience, has there been any trouble finding IRC folks?
Well, I think for us, I think if we call and there's former board members that we can call and ask, there's some that will just tell you, no, I don't want to do it. And that's fine. We don't want anybody down there who doesn't want to do it. You know, it takes time and effort from the IRC people to do it, and they get all the information. So we have to have docs that are going to be dedicated that want to do it, and that are going to be there at those meetings. I would like to think, and I can go back and look at my own records, I was on there more than 3 years, but I never missed a meeting either. One time I even called in from Aruba, so that was an experience in itself. But, so I think we need to have docs that are dedicated, that are going to be there. Things do happen, I understand that. But this is an important process. A great team that take it seriously, they get everything there for us. If we ask in the future, can you ask the investigators, ask these questions, they're there, they do it. We've never had an issue with that. So I think when we look at this, I think we need to get a couple other members and we can ask different board members. The other thing too, we need to ask, is it only board members from South Carolina? We do have a couple past board members from other states that are now living here. And they served 12 years over there. I would think their expertise as being a board member would be good on the IRC. There's not many of them here, but there are some. And I think we could use their expertise if we could. But there's other ones I think if we ask, I think they'd be happy to serve. So.
Can you speak to the time commitment and is it in person or can it be online?
This is online where we do it. We phone in. We talk, online, we have to phone in. So it's very convenient, I think, in the way they do it. You don't have to travel. You can do it from your office. If that hasn't changed, I mean.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, and so I think it works well because, you know, it usually starts at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, they're right on the dot. And they go through things, and then they give us our, legal advice. When we start saying some crazy things, they say, okay, maybe you can't do that. But the time commitment is reading, just like we did today, everybody who read your board notes, and you look at that, and then you're ready to go. And I'll have to say this, they don't waste any time. I mean, they go from one to another, so.
And your meetings are quarterly, and we have one IRC a couple weeks prior to your meeting. So on this meeting's IRC report, there were 5 cases. So reviewing the litigation summaries for 5 cases 4 times a year. And you'd probably know better than I do how long it takes to review those, but.
So do we just need a list of prior board members? And I think I'm open for sure to people out of state that live here now with experience on a board, and then we would vote on those?
But I would prefer,
Prior.
in my mind, South Carolina board members who are intimately affiliated with how the board works and everything else, even though a North Carolina or Nevada board or whatever would, they live here, they're citizens, so agree, but I would still prefer South Carolina board people, not from some.
That's understandable, and, I agree with that, but I think we can't, I hope we don't exclude somebody even though they haven't been a board member here. I just don't want anybody who's never been on our board to sit on the IRC.
I would guess the learning curve is still big as a board member from South Carolina.
Just for clarity, so you're looking for us to just find one more person, 2 more people?
They had asked for 2.
2, okay. Mm-hmm. So we just need a list of names.
List of some former board members. We have several that would do a good job. We just have to have.
And somebody ask them
Yeah.
if they want to.
Yeah, we have to have the chairman give them a call and ask. And then I think we need to send a letter to ask them. And then we need to have, and maybe this is too much, but I think they need to respond, yes, I would like to serve on the board. My term is going to be 2 years or 3 years. So if we take 2 people, the other person comes on, would be on there for 3 years. And then who's going to leave after 1 year. And I'd rather not rotate them. If they go off after 1 year, 2 or 3, I don't want to rotate them right away, but they can come back and do it again. And I say that with the thing, I was on there for a long time, so I was on there 3 times, 3 I think, but I enjoyed doing it, so.
Dr. Kuhn may be interested.
Oh, yeah, I feel like he said that last time.
Yeah. And Dr. Kuhn was one of the original, when Dr. Kuhn's not here, I guess I take over maybe the historian, because he was on there for 800 years or so. I think he was here before they even had the state. But he was one of the original 3 that when we picked him was on there. And, Dr. Kuhn always does a good job evaluating every case and doing that. So I think, he would be obviously a good portion. Though I will say this, and I'm saying without any hard feelings here, but when I left the board, I wanted to be on the IRC, but they said, no, I had to wait 2 years. So I waited like 3 or 4 years. But then they put on some other people that were only off for a year, year and a half, which, if you're going to stay with a 2-year period, stay with a 2-year period. If you're not going to do it, don't do it. But, I had to go through, I had to wait for over 2 years before to get on the IRC.
So do you think your 2 years of absence from the regulatory side, was that helpful or not helpful?
I don't think it was really helpful, but, I kept on, I kept just doing things, always reviewing, did some reviews, that type of thing. But, sometimes they say if you're off 2 years and you don't have any conflict, and really you don't have any conflict generally, and I could be wrong, there may be some people that come back, and of course all you do is recuse yourself. When I was on the board, I heard that. And even like today, I was looking at some things and I saw some of the July 7th, and I said, well, I wasn't there at all because I had to call and say, so I can't be there. But anytime anything would come up, the docs before, like Dr. Marouz, when he was on IRC, he recused himself on a couple issues because he made decisions on that. So I don't think that's a deal. But I'm just saying, if we're going to do it one way, let's do it. If not, then let's don't do it. And I don't have any hard feelings now. I did that. I changed my mind now.
A couple quick questions. So in your mind, Dr. Garcia, what is the perfect number of IRC board members?
Well, it's always been, I think, 3 for the possibility if someone doesn't show up. Now, they do have a 4th one that could be an alternative. Like this last time, whatever happened, we just didn't have anybody. And I couldn't do it. And so the other 2, whatever reasons, they couldn't do it. So if we had the alternative, who used to be Dr. Marouz, then he could do it. And he would get the information like all of us. He wouldn't even attend the meetings unless we needed him. So I think we could do that with 4 and have an alternative, and then that alternative could go, when the one person leaves after 1 year, he could take over that spot, then we'll get another alternative. That way we just have him rotate.
So are the IRC rules or the rubric, is that established in regulation, or is this totem and taboo around the circle with the flames? Is this codified anywhere?
Our agency created. They are not codified.
And so LLR has IRC for mini boards, and they have consistent rules for the mini boards?
We do. The number of IRC members depends on the board. So there are some things that are different from IRC to IRC, but we do have some established rules for the IRCs.
And also, too, when you have to sign, was it the NDA or whatever, is that correct? And it gives you the rules there. My only concern is, I've always said it has to be a board member, former board member, and on there it doesn't say that. It could be DC in the state that has a license to do it, for ours anyway. And I just think there's other DCs out there that have never been on the board that just have no idea if how to do it. Though they get very good guidance, so that's another part. But I would like former board members, and that's how, this is what, when we did it, this is what we had in mind.
So do we need to have codified on paper agreement, or can we say this is the way we do it?
I think you can vote on this is the way you can do it. Would you agree with that, Wick? Okay.
It sounds like the action step is reach out to former board members. And if we're going to not worry about the 2-year, Dr. Kuhn, I do remember stating he would be interested if you have a list of people to see if they're interested, and we can give them names.
I think, Mr. Chairman, the first thing, and this has always been the chairman's call to who you're going to call and ask. We can make some nominations here, and it's your job to call them and say, would you like to serve? And this would be a 3-year term. And then you could call another one and say you would be the alternate. And then after next year, you would be, and then we could all vote on the people you talked to and said, yes, we're fine with that.
And we're cool with people rolling off after 3 years?
I don't see, I feel like you're sharper. And if you need to recuse yourself of a case, you do.
Well, I mean, I like the idea that there's always elder, learned person that says, well, this actually, so many things, especially with Dr. Kuhn and now, well, when this came up before, or I remember this case, not in the 1800s, but I remember this is how we ruled before, inside the IRC, I think that would be valuable too. But if you had...
I think you need to ask.
So I think that's valuable. And Prentice, what are y'all looking for from us?
So I do agree that there are some IRCs where the IRC members stay for a very long time, and then the IRC sometimes gets out of step with the board. And you really want them to agree on how they view cases, because if the IRC is going to be who's recommending your consent agreement parameters, and if you have a very strict or a very not strict IRC, then we're going to bring a consent agreement before you and you're going to reject it because we've either been too hard or too soft. So we want to make sure we're on the same, your IRC members are on the same page as the board members. And historically, Dr. Garcia is right, former board members are very good candidates because you got to think you do this 4 times a year, you do the IRC 4 times a year. It's a lot to catch up on if you've never really been through this process. So I don't think you have to exclude somebody that would be very good at it, but it is helpful to have that background. As to the rolling off each 3 years, I like that idea, but I also think at some point you're going to run out of people to be on the IRC, or you're just going to rotate the same people back in. And it is really nice to have somebody that says, I remember when we had a case like this a couple years ago, this is what we did with it, or this is how the board was concerned about it. So I see that both ways, actually.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, and I agree with that. Well, I will say, though, we have so many former board members that would be great at the IRC, and we're just letting them out to pasture and not, and they're still practicing. So those that are practicing, I think it's a, very good thing. Like Dr. Kuhn would be great on this. Dr. Hevner, when I know he does something, Dr. McGinnis. I mean, we've had 6 or 7 I could mention right off that would be great at it. And, they're dedicated docs. They're dedicated to our profession. And I think they would work very well with the IRC. And they've always worked very well when they were on the board for the LLR and all that. So those are just a few people that I can think of, Dr. Green up in Greenville. So some of those would be, great. So I think we have a thing where we could rotate one off, and it may be, another 3 or 4 years before they get on. So we don't have the same people, but we have different people with experiences. And just those people I mentioned would be just wonderful.
And so you have in your brain a universe of that's a good, Dr. Kuhn, Dr. McKenna, these people all be good. And there's a universe of those people that's enough that we would never run out in
Yes.
your...
Yeah, I agree with that. And because they're just, and, if they're good board members, and I can't think of many that have not been good board members, they're going to be great on the IRC. And, because the one thing, if you're serving on here, you're worried about our profession, and you're worried about the public safety, you're worried about the dock. So, you're concerned, so your concern never stops. And it gives them a way to still use their expertise, to help us.
All right, so on the tracks of things, so I think, Wick, we can approve some people to be put on the board, on the IRC, based on the agenda things. Is there a restriction to what we can do this meeting with the 30 days notice and all those things required for big things? So how many people do we need to send to IRC today?
So you currently have 2 IRC members. When y'all asked me this question at the last meeting, you said, how many would I suggest? I suggested 3, but I'm not the one in charge of the IRCs. OIE, the Office of Investigations, is, and they asked for 2. And so I think you could have 3 and 1 is an alternate, because I would imagine the 4th one is in case there's scheduling issues. So if you currently have 2, if you added another, regular member of the IRC and then add the alternate, which I think I told you you didn't need at the last meeting, so that is my fault. But I think Office of Investigations would prefer that, and they are the ones who organize it and run it, so I will defer to them on that.
Right, does anybody, we have Dr. Mike Kuhn as one person that we've talked about. Is there anybody else?
Well, I would like to, if he would like to do it, I would like to mention Dr. McGinnis.
Okay. You have high confidence that he would be willing to accept it?
I do. I think you could twist his arm to do it. You can do it, Mr. Chairman, or else I could call him and ask him to,
But would he be insulted if we put him on today and asked him about it tomorrow?
I do think, well, he could always say no, but I think it'd be a good thing to ask Dr. McGinnis. And of course, Dr. Kuhn would be the first one, and since he just got off of here, there's somebody I think we all could decide yes.
He agreed to it in advance.
Yeah, so we could maybe put him and then ask Dr. McGinnis to be the alternate, and then ask him that, meaning that unless things change, and that next year he would roll on to the board. And then,
And we can't do the timing rubric in this meeting because we can only, because the agenda item, we can only add people, I think. Is
Okay,
that correct?
right, that's right.
But would you be amenable to us taking a recess and you phoning Dr. McGinnis so we can wrap it all up
Okay.
this meeting?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, so I will entertain a motion for a 10-minute recess.
Moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. All right, we are in recess for 10 minutes. And Dr. Garcia has a great statement to share with us.
I talked to Dr. McGinnis, and he said he would be happy to serve as the alternate and then go on to be on the IRC member as it changed time. So he'd be happy to do it. And we're great to get him.
All right, I am willing to accept a motion to put Dr. McGinnis and Dr. Kuhn, add them to IRC.
I make a motion to add Dr. Kuhn and Dr. McGinnis to IRC.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, we have done that. Now, we talked about some timing and how people roll on and roll off and the experience of IRC. I would like us to go ahead and have a vote on that. We'll come up with it at our next meeting because we'll need to talk about it and we'll need to formulate and find out what's real and what will work.
Agree.
Right, so did you second? Or how about this? I would like to make that as a motion now.
Second.
All right. All, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. So we'll add that as an agenda item for next meeting to get that all straightened out. All right, now we have our waiver requests. Now, because these things might have HIPAA-type information, I would like to move to closed session. Got a second? Any discussion? All in favor to going into closed session, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. session.
I don't want to be the motion guy. I feel like I'm,
No, it's good.
turning
It's
into the
good.
motion guy. I need another.
Could you say, well, there you go.
That's what, and now we start looking for you.
We just open the door. They're all Thursdays, right? The dates.
All right, so we're back out of closed session. Item number 13, 2027 board meeting dates. February, May, August, November. Do any of these dates, Mac, interfere with any board event or board trip or national board or district meeting?
Not that I'm aware of right now. Not out at this time for those meetings, but I don't think that they are.
Okay. Does anybody here have any problems or dissonance with these dates? Gladly accept a motion to approve.
I motion to approve the dates as is for board meetings.
All right, any additional discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, so we have our board meetings. And goodness, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn, or is there something else that we need to do?
I motion that Ed makes the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
No. We have to have a vote on the motion to. I think I can accept your motion to adjourn. There's no need for discussion, or is there? All in favor say aye. Nay say nay. Not like a horse. We stand adjourned.